Hello everyone, this is Andrew from Crown Academy of English. Today we're doing a lesson about each other and one another. So, an example situation: Mark loves Jane and Jane loves Mark. So we can say Mark and Jane love each other. Love each other. So the structure each other is a reciprocal pronoun. Reciprocal pronoun. So what does that mean? Well, it means that we use each other to show that each person in a group of people does something to the others, and that each person receives the benefits of the action. Okay, so there is a reciprocal action. I do something to you, and you do something to me. It's reciprocal. And we can also use one another. And one another is also a reciprocal pronoun. So we can say Mark and Jane love one another. And in modern English, each other and one another have the same meaning and use. Okay, so they are practically the same. So each other, it's, as I say, it's reciprocal. So it means that Mark loves Jane and Jane loves Mark. It's in both directions. Let's look at some more examples. Mark gave Jane a gift. And Jane gave Mark a gift. So we can say that Mark and Jane gave each other gifts. They gave each other gifts. Okay, it's reciprocal. And we can also say Mark and Jane gave one another gifts. Gave one another gifts. So both of these sentences are correct, and both of them mean exactly the same thing. More examples. Sarah is talking to Jane. And Jane is talking to Sarah. So we can say they are talking to each other. They are talking to each other. Or they are talking to one another. They are talking to one another. Again, these two sentences are both correct and they mean exactly the same thing. More examples. David asks, "How is Jane?" And Mark replies, "She is well. We call each other regularly. We call each other regularly." So, what does this mean? Well, in fact, this means, well, from Mark's perspective, from the perspective of Mark, it means that I call Jane regularly, and Jane calls me regularly. Okay? Notice that this is from Mark's perspective. So he uses we as the subject. It is the first person plural. We call each other regularly. And we can also say, she is well. We call one another regularly. And again, these two sentences are both correct and they mean the same thing. We can form possessive adjectives from each other and one another. Remember, revision, a possessive adjective describes who owns something. It describes possession. So each other is the reciprocal pronoun, and each other's with an apostrophe s is the possessive adjective, and one another becomes one another's apostrophe s. So these are the reciprocal pronouns, and we have already seen how to use them, and now we are going to look at how we use these possessive adjectives. So Mark often uses Jane's phone. So this is the situation. Jane has a phone and Mark often uses it. Okay? And also, Jane often uses Mark's phone. So Mark also has a phone and Jane often uses it. So that is the context. That's the situation. So we can say Mark and Jane often use each other's phones. Often use each other's phones. So they often use the phone of the other person. Or we can say Mark and Jane often use one another's phones. One another's phones. And again, both of these mean exactly the same thing, and they're both correct. Now let's look at some common mistakes. So this sentence is correct. We have already seen this. So this means that Mark helped Jane and Jane helped Mark. So Mark and Jane helped each other. That is correct. It's the correct form and use. But a common mistake, well, it's important to understand that each other, this structure is two separate words. Two separate words. And each other as one word, this is wrong. This is a common mistake. I often see my students write this. This is wrong. It must be two separate words. Example. So this is wrong. Another common mistake. Well, it's important to understand that each other and one another do not have a plural form. Therefore, Mark and Jane helped each other's. This is wrong because there is no S here. This is the correct form, but this is wrong. Mark and Jane helped one another's. Again, this is wrong because of the letter S. There is no S here. The correct answer would be Mark and Jane helped one another. Singular. Okay? So there we are. That is the end of the lesson. And here are some other videos which you might be interested in.